Welcome to the Jockey Club, a podcast looking at the movie Let It Ride, one scene at a time. My name is Dan Delgado, and we're at historic Hialeah Park where one man is having the best day of his life.
I'm having a good day.
So come on in and hang out while we talk about this day and the greatest movie of all time, Let It Ride. Don't worry about that guy at the door. I've got you covered. You can even
take my seat to the Jockey Club.
Welcome to the Jockey Club, a scene-by-scene look at the movie Let It Ride. I'm your host, Dan Delgado, and today, since this is the 6th episode, that means we'll be taking a look at the 6th scene of the movie. If you're playing along at home, that means we're looking at, more specifically, minute 1835 to minute 2027. This is where Trotter makes his first bet, and it's also the first time we see Cheeseburger and the ticket seller. And joining me at my usual table in the Jockey Club is someone who may be overqualified for the job, award-winning sports writer Richard Linihan. In addition to writing about horse racing for the Tulsa World and working at the Remington Park Racing and Casino, Linihan worked and was friends with the late, great Jay Cronley himself, whom you know, of course, as the author of Good Vibes, the book Let It Ride was based on. In this episode, yes, we do get to talk about the 6th scene, but you will also hear about some bad beats at the track and just how close was Jay Cronley to his creation, Jay Trotter. I think you have a unique perspective when it comes to Let It Ride because you knew Jay Cronley, author of Good Vibes, correct?
Right. We were friends for about 25 years, worked at the same newspaper. And he taught me everything I know, just about 90% of everything I know about horse racing. They came to me one day, my sports editor. I was covering the Dallas Cowboys and the Kansas City Chiefs for our newspaper. And our horse racing writer decided to become a U.S. district judge in Las Vegas. So she was going to law school. And he said, "You're about the only one with a flexible beat. So can you cover horse racing for us?" Well, my mom, she never took us around horses when we were kids because she had a dream, a recurring dream about a horse biting her in the back. So I didn't know the first thing about a horse. And I ended up having to cover horse racing. And they said, "Just go talk to Jay. He'll tell you anything you need to know."
Now, it's interesting because since they had Jay there, you would think that he would be the person covering horses, no?
He was our main columnist for the newspaper. He had 3 columns. He was like a humorist, like a
Yes.
Dave Barry. And we couldn't afford to take him out of that position. He was still going over to Oaklawn every year. He and I went over there a few times, and I covered Oaklawn for the newspaper all the way through American Pharaoh's Arkansas Derby win until I got out of newspaper.
Oh, wow. So when is that? Is that like 2010?
Yeah, I think so. And then I'm at Remington Park right now as the assistant communications manager here in Oklahoma, writing press releases for the horse racing here.
Okay. So now, generally, when I have somebody new on this podcast, the first question I ask them, and maybe you'll have an interesting answer for this, is when was the first time that you saw Let It Ride?
Oh my gosh, it was right after it came out. I mean, I had read the book already because Jay, had written it. It was called Good Vibes. The book actually had a different title, but I knew it was coming out, and he was, taking me aside and laughing at some of the parts that he thought I would love, and he was right. Robbie Coltrane was one of the ones that he loved the most, the teller who played that part.
Oh, that's funny because the scene that we're going to talk about is the first scene that the ticket seller is in. So I'm really glad to hear that. I'm glad. I was hoping that since you are somebody who clearly you've had experience going to tracks and that you would have some interesting perspective on this scene where Jay Trotter makes his first wager of the day. But one thing I want to ask you before we start that is,
all right,
I always think it's interesting. Now, I talked to Jay. I interviewed him twice, actually. And I always thought it was interesting that in Good Vibes, he named his main character Jay a guy who goes to the track a lot.
Yeah.
And he's Jay, a guy who goes to the track a lot. So from your perspective, how close do you think Jay Trotter and Jay Cronley actually were?
Well, I would say they were very, very close to each other, with the exception of when Jay was on a losing streak, Jay Cronley. You did not want to be around this man at the racetrack. He would throw binoculars, goggles. And I saw him throw binoculars and hit a big glass window at Remington Park one time. I think he got kicked out of every track in Oklahoma. But just to give you an insight into Jay's philosophy and wagering, he was always a guy that thought that if he bought you a ticket, that his luck would be better. So he had all these different odd intricacies of how to wager and how he could win more money. So there was one day back in 1990 when we were at Remington Park, and he was sitting in silks. He said, "Come down and see me," because I was up working in the press box, and I was trying to figure out how to play a pick six that day. I had a $72 ticket that I thought had a really good chance to hit the pick six at Remington, and I was counting on that money coming from the daily double because I was down to about $15. So
Okay.
I missed the first half of the daily double. I said, well, enough of this. I'll go down and see Jay. I get down to Jay in the second race, and the pick six starts in race 3. And he throws a $5 exact at me at the table and says, "Here, that's for you." And sure enough, it hit. It paid over $100. And I said, "Thanks, Jay. I got to go." I went and played my $72 pick six, and I hit my first pick six that day for $17,000.
Oh, my
And
God.
yeah, Jay wrote a column in the paper on Monday that said, "My friend hit the pick six for $17,000, and all I got was dinner." So
He did not expect you to split any winnings on any tickets that he bought you.
he didn't. He knew that
Okay, good.
the car I was driving the passenger door would come up, or the driver's side door would come open when I went around corners, and when I had my dog sitting on my lap, got pretty exciting. So I had to get a new car. Jay was a
Okay.
character.
Oh, yeah, yeah. He certainly seemed like one. He certainly did. I love hearing these kinds of stories. And also that my suspicions about both Jays being somewhat similar are kind of accurate there.
Yeah, the thing about Jay Trotter is he was on a kind of run that Jay always used to tell me a story about how he went to the track one day, started with a $5 win parlay, and just kept rolling it over on the next race. And he got up to $10,000. There was one race left. He put 10,000 to win on a horse and lost by a nose. And when he got home, his wife said, "How'd you do it at the track?" And he said, "Oh, not too bad. I lost $5." That's what Trotter reminded me of.
Oh, man. All right. So what I'm going to do is just kind of walk us through the events of
Okay.
this scene, and then any comments that you have or that you want to throw in or any perspective, I would love to hear, especially from a betting perspective, especially on kind of the relationships that these people seem to have with each other. I'm always curious as to just how accurate it was, you know?
Okay.
All right, so in this scene, it starts out where Trotter is walking up to the $50 minimum bet window, and what I love about the line is ahead of him is a a very minor character, a guy. He's got a giant cigar and big, thick sunglasses, and he was one of the guys that later on answers Trotter's poll when he's asking for his third horse. Anyway, behind him is the first time we come across Cheeseburger, played by Richard Dimitri. He comes, he sees that he's there. He looks at Jay, realizes that he's at the $50 window instead of, I guess, the normal $2 window for these guys.
Yeah.
And he asks him the best question. He says, "Is some relative die?" And, and Cheeseburger is a guy, he's wearing this red Hawaiian shirt. It is open all the way down to his navel. He's got a lot of gold chains. Did you see guys like this at the track?
Oh, heck yeah. In fact, Jay told me that he based a lot of this story on people he saw at Oaklawn in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And I mean, if you know the background of that town, that was like a hideout for Al Capone during his big crime wave days back in the 40s or the 30s. I mean, he was so well respected in Hot Springs that they had a restaurant named after him, and nobody talked bad about him in that town. So you can imagine the kind of people it did attract back in the day when horse racing was actually the only thing you could bet on in those days instead of in sports.
Oh, wow. So guys like Cheeseburger, based on real guys from who may or may not have been hiding out in Hot Springs, Arkansas.
That's exactly right.
So here, Cheeseburger asks Trotter which horse he likes, and Trotter, who's not been wanting to tell anybody his horse, kind of reluctantly, very quietly tells him it's the number 4 horse. And I'm guessing maybe he probably does not want to cause a scene or have a discussion, but this is clearly the worst thing he could have done because Cheeseburger finds this to be hysterical. He starts laughing. 4 horse is a joke, Trotter.
The horse is a joke, Trotter.
Everything he says here, by the way, is hysterical. and also, his delivery of these lines, they put little children on the 4 horse.
To have their pictures taken. Excuse me.
It's hysterically funny, right?
That's exactly right. And let me tell you something. We had guys at the racetrack back in the day in 1990s. These are some of the best handicappers in this area of the country. We would always ask, who do you like in this race? And we'd say, do you like this horse? And one of them was Bob Forrest. We loved asking Bob if he liked our horse. And as soon as he said he hated that horse, that the horse they send out a search party for him after the race, we would go to the window and just collect. So there were characters just like that in the press box. I mean, one time Jay even almost got into a fight in the press box with Bob Forrest. They worked for the same newspaper, but Bob and Jay did not like each other. And Bob had picked a horse that was like 3-5 to win a race, and Jay loved this horse that was 7-1. And they're coming to the quarter pole, and Jay's horse has about a 5-length lead. And he says, how do you like that, Bob? And Bob says, you can't cash your tickets at the quarter pole. And I mean, the 3-5 horse ends up beating Jay's horse by a nose. And
oh my God.
Jay got out of his chair and went over to Bob and was just kind of belly bumping him. You going to tell me when I can cash my tickets? You going to tell me? It was great times, man.
Oh my God. So a lot of these guys in this movie, they seem to be under the impression that they know a lot about the sport of horse racing. They know a lot about these horses. Everyone believes that the 4 horse is a joke. Do people like this, they actually believe these things? How do they have this sort of, is it an insight? Is it because they've seen the horses run in another race? Is it a sixth sense? Where does this idea or this this thought of knowledge, this belief, I should say, this belief of knowledge, where do you think that comes from?
Well, you know what? In the case of guys like Bob Forrest, who was considered one of the best handicappers here in Oklahoma when Remington Park opened up, this guy had a memory that was just like a steel trap. He could remember any race that he ever saw. And if a horse got in trouble in that race, then he would know the next time to bet it. And unfortunately, he always bet it wrong. He'd bet a $40 straight exact and it'd run first with a different horse. And so he had all kinds of collectors coming after him. But he was the best handicapper in the world, but he was the worst bettor. So it's funny. These guys, they just, they get on their high horse and sometimes they do know a lot about horse racing, but they still lose thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So at this point, Cheeseburger is laughing at him, making fun of him. Trotter starts yelling for help. And I'm impressed at how quickly the security guard comes up. It's Reardon, we'll learn later on. But he appears and he picks up Cheeseburger and starts taking him away. Cheeseburger cannot stop laughing at Trotter. He's not even concerned so much that he's being removed. He does say to him, watch the chains as he's being manhandled, right?
Yeah.
And it's almost as though, yes, I understand that you have to remove me because I'm harassing the customers. Just don't break my chain as you do it. And you still hear him laughing like a good solid 30 seconds to a minute after he's gone from the scene. Sorry to interrupt this conversation, but we have a correction. Please update your racing form to indicate that Cheeseburger's laugh lasts only for about 6 or 7 seconds, not 30 seconds to a minute. But it does seem longer. Thank you.
That's right. That's the man that's been in horse racing jail before, isn't it?
Have you ever been in a horse racing jail? Is that a thing?
I have not. I haven't even seen a track that has some NFL football stadiums like the old Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia used to have a jail just for overzealous fans. Of course, that's Philadelphia. But the closest thing I've come to criminal activity, I worked at a little tiny track here in Tulsa, Oklahoma called Fair Meadows. And we used to have about 10,000 people come out before all the lottery and all this stuff blew up, the casinos. And so 10,000 people would come out to the track. And then one weekend, I heard a big commotion over by the betting windows. And I go to see what's going on, talk to our head of security. And she said, well, we just took a guy to the hospital. His friend won $1,000 on a trifecta, and he owed his buddy money that was there with him. And the buddy wanted to get his money, and he wouldn't give it to him. So he bit his ear off.
Oh.
Yeah. And here's the funny part. We could have taken him to a hospital about 2 miles away from the track. And because he was of Native American status, he wanted to go to an Indian hospital, which was an hour and a half away from Tulsa.
My God.
Yeah, they just put his ear on ice, and he just enjoyed his ride. Crazy.
All right, Trotter finally gets to the window, and this is where we first see the ticket seller. And the ticket seller does not like Trotter.
No.
Trotter's there to drop his $50 down on his number 4 horse, and the ticket seller immediately tells him, this is the $50 window. The $2 window is right over there. So have you had any experiences with ticket sellers who notice regular guys that maybe they don't care for because, I don't know, they're undesirable, they're degenerates, whatever?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure that the teller there in the movie thought, here's another guy that thinks he knows everything about horse racing. I'll put up with him, but at any cost, I'll make sure that he is denied any kind of integrity. So at first he just hates his guts and kind of derides him. But as you see during the movie, that changes.
Oh yeah, it completely changes, right? Like, yeah, this is great because it's this first interaction that it's just so negative. But yeah, as we go on, it's going to become so much better. You know, I can remember that I would go to Highlight with my brother, and he would handle all the betting. He's my older brother, and there would be certain guys that he kind of knew, just in this, like their entire relationship was just, I'm betting, you're handing me a ticket. But they had like a little bit of conversation, a little bit of rapport. And so I would think that just like that, there's also that flip side where it's like, ugh, this guy again. It's got to be what Jay is. So Trotter insists on making his bet. The ticket seller eventually, he sells it to him, and he says, thank you. The ticket is so snide. He says, believe me, it was nothing. It's just completely dismissing him. And then even after Trotter leaves, he starts like staring at that $50 bill. Like, is this real? Is this legit? So I guess really that is pretty much the end of that scene. But that ticket seller relationship, that's not anything that you've had. What would have been your relationships like with ticket sellers?
Well, I did work running a simulcast facility in Tulsa there for a while, for about 16 years. So I had to deal with the tellers as well. And some of the tellers, you want to trust them, but in the back of your mind, you better keep an eye out for it. Any of them. You start out the day giving them a $2,500 cash bag, and they turn that in at night, after all the tickets are sold. And we got everything in one morning and started counting it, and we were $2,500 short.
I mean, you gave him a $2,500.
Yeah, each of them to take to their
Okay.
drawer. And then they would use that
Okay.
we would give them that to make change for the guys that bought tickets and stuff like that. So at the end of the night, they turned their cash bag in, plus all the bets that were in it. And we were short one morning, $2,500. And one of the tellers had left her bag in her drawer. It's just unlocked. It was still there.
Wow.
When we got in there in the morning. She was very, I mean, you get all kinds of different people that work that job, and you kind of get what you pay for.
Yeah. I totally understand that. So let me ask you, what did Jay, when this movie came up, what did he have to say about it? Did you find him to be proud of it? Did you find him to be, okay with it? Like, what do you think his attitude was?
I think he really loved it. And, I don't think any of his movies ever lived up to his books, according to him, but that's probably true of any author. But I think he enjoyed it quite a bit when they were filming the movie. He was right there on the set with Dreyfuss, and he said after they wrapped up for the day that they went down to the dog track, and I think it was in Houston or south of Houston, and said as far as Let It Ride goes, Richard Dreyfuss didn't make a winning bet all night, so he was nothing like his character. So, but he loved it. He loved Robbie Coltrane. He loved Buster Poindexter, whatever, David Johansen, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah. Right. Yes.
You remember him, the one that gave blood so he could make a bet with the money he got from giving blood.
Absolutely, of course. Yeah. So, is this a movie that you watch from time to time? Does it come back to you?
Anytime I see it on television, I record it because you just never know when it's not coming back. I know it got panned when it came out, but I thought it was hilarious the first time I saw it. But I think you almost have to be a little bit of an insider in horse racing to enjoy and understand what exactly happened that day. Plus the characters that Jay produced. Oh my gosh, the guy in the Jockey Club with the oxygen tank and his trophy wife, Michelle Phillips from the Mamas and the Papas. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was hilarious.
Yes. Speaking of the Jockey Club, actually, that's the name of the podcast, is the Jockey Club. That's sort of the conceit of the podcast, is that you and I, that we're actually sitting in the Jockey Club right now. That's kind of the idea. So
I better go get my tie.
Right. So places like that in tracks. Have you been inside? I have not been inside places like this. So I'm just curious.
In the Jockey Club?
Yeah, like Jockey Club, like that's a thing.
Yeah. I mean, I worked at Sam Houston Race Park down in Houston, and I had to go in the Jockey Club quite a bit there. We'd see some of the major league baseball players there. Moises Alou always came in. He loved horse racing.
Oh, nice.
And Doug Drabeck, he was one of the pitchers for the Astros back then.
Oh.
He loved it too. And you'd see all kinds of celebrities down there. Patrick Swayze, I interviewed one time in the paddock. And guys like that would come out all the time. And a lot of times they would go to the Jockey Club. Now, one that didn't was Lyle Lovett. He went right out there and sat with the regular people. He said, "No, I don't want to sit in there. I'll sit here with my friends." So it's quite interesting, the different people that come and go through those doors. I mean, it's a little bit haughty for some, but
yes, I would imagine. So did you feel like it's a kind of a haughty, like anytime you're going in there, it's like, oh yes, it's a little haughty in here, but I could deal with it.
Well, as the racetrack representative, you kind of have to cater to that effect. But Moises Alou, guys like that, they were really nice people. I mean, most of them were just regular people that had money, just lucky enough to be in that upper set. I mean, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Best Little Whorehouse in Texas.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
The part where the TV guy comes and That guy that actually the character was based on, the TV announcer, he used to come to the racetrack all the time in Houston. And his wife actually passed away right there in the Jockey Club one night. I know that's not funny, but it was just odd that someone.
No, that's definitely an odd thing. Did she have a heart attack? She just sort of keel over?
just collapsed right there and was gone. It was crazy.
Okay, and so if you have a preference, are you a Jockey Club kind of guy, or are you more like you're gonna sit in the bar with the other guys?
Well, one time I was as a part of the media, I went to the Breeders' Cup at Hollywood Park. It was the year Skip Away won the Breeders' Cup Classic, and Favorite Trick, the 2-year-old, was champion horse of the year, and he won the juvenile that year. So I get to the track at Hollywood Park, and my media credentials were hanging on my shirt just like they're supposed to be. I get up to the press box, and they said, "No, you don't have a seat up here." I said, "Well, where am I supposed to go?" "Go wherever you want, but not up here." So I went down to the rail and hung out with all the winos and in my suit and tie, and I had the greatest time of all. So I'd rather just mingle among the people.
What was it? Sort of a let it ride kind of experience, like those kinds of characters are hanging out on the rail. That's where they.
Oh
hang.
Yeah, it's crazy. Those people are just nuts, especially in California.
All right. Well, Richard, I think we've done it all. I think we've covered this particular scene. So unless there's anything else that you'd like to add.
Well, I have one little story you might find interesting if you got time.
Lay it on me.
All right. This was about 10 years ago. And after hitting a couple of pick sixes with the help of Jay Cronley, there was about $1 million carryover at Santa Anita one day. This was back when they had $2 pick sixes, right? Instead of 50 centers. So I was trying to figure out what it would take to hit this pick six. And I came to the conclusion that I could probably have a really good chance with a $400 ticket, right? But it was going to be $7 million in the final pool. I thought $400.
Okay.
$400, that's a good investment if you get back a lot of money.
Well, I would say.
So I put my ticket together, had a $400 ticket, and I got to looking at the races and came to the last race, and I was up to $200 on my ticket, how much I was going to play. So I could use 2 horses in the last race. But there was a heavy favorite in the last race that just beaten everybody else in the race and had finished second in a maiden race. So it hadn't won yet, but it looked like it had to win this race. It was going to go off 6-5. And there was a horse in the race named Houston Astro. Now you got to understand, I worked at Sam Houston Race Park for 5 years, and I went to like 20 Houston Astro games a year, and I was a huge fan. So
Destiny.
Yeah, God is stepping in and telling me, all right, this is your one chance. And I looked at the horse, and he had just got beat in the former race by 22 lengths by the favorite that I liked, the favorite. I said, there's no way this horse is going to make up 22 lengths. So instead of playing a $400 ticket, I played $200. Left him off, left Houston Astro off. So long story short, I'm 5 for 5, got a couple of long shots in there. So most of the pick six tickets are eliminated already. We come to the last race. We come to the top of the stretch, and my favorite has got about a 5-length lead. He's going to win easy. And I had looked at the will pays, and I was going to win $100,000 with this 6-5 horse. And that's the only one I had in the race.
Okay. Yeah.
So get about to the 16th pole, and the announcer, I guess it was Trevor Denman back then, he starts saying, there's one long shot coming at your favorite. He's making a run on the outside. And I'm thinking, oh, God, please don't let it be Houston Astro.
Right.
It comes up to my horse and gets past my horse, and it's 70-1, but it's not Houston Astro.
Oh, thank
God. Other horse. So
thank God. All right.
I'm thinking now I'm going to get consolation. And all of a sudden he says, the long shot is pulled up. He's pulled up. He's not going to finish. And now I'm on the lead again with my $100,000 horse. And he says, there's only one other horse that can get him. And they're coming to the wire together. Houston Astro gets up by a head, and he's 30-1. And I'm waiting for the announcer to tell me how much it pays. He said, in today's pick six, there were 2 winning tickets, and they each pay $1.5 million.
Oh, my God.
If I had put Houston Astro on my ticket, there would have been 3 tickets paying $1 million each. And that was my last chance to win $1 million. I don't even play the lottery anymore because I had my chance. And I screwed
play the lottery anymore. Oh my God! You certainly, you know what? The way you tell the story, I gotta say, you seem to handle it very well at this point. But oh man, that is such a terrible beat because it was as though the universe was telling you something.
Exactly.
And then the logic kicked in, and you know.
Yeah, I had to listen to myself.
Yeah, the head over the heart, and it just screws you up. Oh,
and I
man.
won $3,000 on 5 of 6, but I'd never been so upset at winning $3,000 in my life.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Jockey Club. This episode was hosted and produced by me, Dan Delgado. A big thank you to my guest, sportswriter Richard Linihan. Our theme music is from Epidemic Sound. Our cover art is by Sean Labrie. If you enjoyed this episode, and I really hope you did, well then you can feel free to leave us a very nice, pleasant 5-star review wherever it is that you can. That's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, some other podcasting app, or better yet, maybe just tell another Let It Ride fan about it. It may or may not help the show get noticed, but it will bring a little bit of satisfaction into my empty life. You can contact me through my email. It's dan@moviemaker.com. I'm on Twitter @Dan_Delgado, or even better, I'm on the Repod app, which is a great way to not only to listen to podcasts, but to interact with podcast hosts like me. You can find it in your app store. Come by and say hello. This has been Dan Delgado for the Jockey Club. And remember, you might be walking around lucky and not know it.